What do you think is often misunderstood or misinterpreted
please.
about Mexico?
Everything. I don't think there's anything that ever is positive on the news about Mexico in the US. I think it's all negative. So it's just constantly reinforced that they're criminals and rapists and all kinds of ill people. It's not true at all.
For many Americans, Mexico is a vacation. Some people move here for retirement, some for escape, some for fantasy. But belonging, being in a community, is built. Not inherited, not bought, not rushed. Welcome to 365 Days of Tequila, where every sip reveals a deeper meaning. Community, identity, patience, culture, and the quiet work of building a life. Today, we meet Wayne, an American immigrant who has lived in Morelia, Michoacan for 16 and a half years, building businesses, learning Spanish, and building community from scratch.
Gosh, that had to have happened probably 25 to 28 years ago when I really fell in love with Mexico and the people. And I decided at that point that, gosh, it's a possibility that I could actually live here in Mexico once I retired.
Wow.
And unfortunately, the recession in the US pushed that up a little bit to where I wasn't ready to retire, but the recession retired me. So that's when I made the decision to move down here.
Not a fantasy, a pivot. As you listen today, I want you to ask yourself, where are you trying to feel at home? And what work are you actually putting in to belong there? Let us know in the comments. And you moved to Morelia.
To Morelia. I had been here on 3 other occasions, and I knew that was the place I wanted to live. I fell in love with Morelia the first night, so there was no question in my mind where to come and live. Truthfully, it had to be the European feel, because the first night when I saw the buildings lit up, it was like being in Europe. It was magical. It was overwhelming in many regards, and I just felt at home from that very first night and knew that this is the place I wanted to live.
When you visit Morelia, it can feel cinematic. The colonial architecture, pink cantera stone, light, history. A UNESCO World Heritage City. But belonging doesn't come from architecture, and the feeling of home has to survive ordinary days. So what kept Wayne here?
What drew me to Mexico initially were the people, their friendliness, their helpfulness. I mean, I've told you that before, that there's many instances where I've had flat tires or some kind of emergency, and a Mexican will come and help you immediately. Where in the United States, the people would just pass by and stare at you on the side of the road. And that's one thing that really, really struck home with me, was they didn't need to do that, but they did. They went out of their way to rescue you. And it happens all the time. You see people helping somebody fall on the street, they're there to help pick them up and see if they're all right. It's really, really a wonderful quality of the nation and the people here.
And there it is. Belonging starts in the small moments, the unplanned ones, when nobody has to help you, and yet they do. When the heartache of your previous life knocks at the door even when you know you chose correctly.
It's still the hardest thing, and I do struggle with this occasionally. It's my family. I have my kids and grandkids and my former wife and other relatives and friends in the U.S. It's hard. You miss them, I do get to travel to see them twice a year, let's say, but there's other occasions when they're having family get-togethers that you're not part of, and you do feel left out, and you're missing them. It's so much easier today than it was with video calls and communications the way it is. In the old days, they didn't even have phone lines to the U.S. You'd have to go to a call center and place a call to the U.S. to connect with somebody. Well, it's much easier today, obviously.
A life in Mexico isn't frictionless and doesn't erase the gravity of family elsewhere. Belonging somewhere new costs something somewhere else, and it can still ache. Was there a moment when you doubted whether you had made the right decision?
No, I don't. I've never second-guessed myself on that, ever. I just keep plunging in, and I make a goal, and I strive to meet that goal. So.
Then let me ask you the opposite.
Okay.
Has there been a moment that reaffirmed that you made the right decision?
I think that's every day. The interesting thing is, I packed up all my furniture. Most of this furniture that you see around me, I brought from the U.S. This is my stuff. So that was a large commitment to say, hey, I'm moving and I'm staying. And I haven't regretted that. I love it. It makes me comfortable. I told you I was in home furnishings, and these are things that bring me joy. So 90% of what you see is from my home in the U.S. So
it's who you are.
It's who I am, and I feel comfortable with it.
A rooted life. Comfort is not the enemy of change. It's how some people survive it. So how do you create a sense of belonging when nobody is handing it to you?
I think it's through your interpersonal relationships, with making friends and being part of the community, and I just feel so comfortable. And Morelia in a way is still a small city, even though we have like 1 million population. It's still a small community, and you run into people every day, everywhere you go. I think that's why I feel like this is home. It's a daily, good, positive reinforcement. The first business I had was a specialty store. And the interesting thing that most of my customers were 99.9% were locals, not expats, but locals. So I quickly learned what they needed and what they wanted. They did not want anything that was Mexican handcrafts. They wanted items that were imported either from China or Asia or wherever, that was minimalistic, modern in design. So once I brought in this Frida collection, and it was an instant markdown. Nobody wanted Frida. They wanted modern furnishings. So that's what I focused on, and I was successful.
Here's the tension foreigners miss. You arrive thinking you understand Mexico, but the city teaches you what it actually wants. And a word of caution.
The one thing that you have to guard yourself against is trying to turn Mexico into the U.S. light. You can't change the culture. You're a guest to the country, and you have to allow the country to change on its own. So this is a resentment I have with many of the expat communities, where they have gone in, large expat communities, and changed the culture to meet their own needs. So I think we have to be a little more patient and allow that to evolve. For example, the one place that everybody says you must visit is San Miguel de Allende. I went there initially, and I spent a half a day there, and I literally couldn't get out of that town fast enough because I literally overheard people saying to people working in shops, and I'm not making this up, telling a Mexican employee that they needed to learn to speak English because this was an English-speaking town. Number two, how much is that in real money? I mean, I was like, are you kidding me? And this is even before I moved to Mexico. I was like, I'm out of here. This is not a place I want to live.
Belonging here cannot be demanded. This isn't a conquest, it's participation. It can't be outsourced. It can't be translated automatically in Google. It has to be attempted. And you may need years to make that happen.
Learn the language. That's the most important thing. You know, be able to communicate with people and develop friendships and not just hang out within your own expat community, you know, because that's what enriches us. That's what makes this whole experience wonderful, is getting to know people of this country and exploring and being a part of it, you know, and not just living in your own little isolated group of friends. So, and the number one reason that I learned to speak Spanish, I was never afraid, even though my language skills were horrible to begin with. I just never got embarrassed. You keep trying till you get it right.
Not perfect Spanish, the courage to be humbled and keep going. And that humility has to extend to the daily friction you'll absolutely encounter here.
It's a much more laid-back society than what I'm used to in the US. And sometimes that frustrates me because I like things to move a little quicker than they actually do. I mean, it's just a daily realization. It's not what you're used to. And, you know, you gotta learn a bit of patience. I guess professionally, I felt part of a community in a professional standpoint. I don't think if I felt it personally until I did start my social organization, Morelia United, and see that I did kind of develop a community. At that point, there was no expat group, nothing. I mean, there were no organized events, nothing. I threw this party and invited the community to come and meet this friend of mine who was visiting. And it was Halloween, and we had it at a local restaurant bar in Central, and 30 people showed up, and everybody enjoyed themselves and said, we need to do this on a regular basis. So I took up the cause, and I planned the next event for a January event, I think.
This is belonging that is built. Morelia United isn't just an expat group in Mexico. It's an attempt to unite two parallel worlds, a labor of love that creates space for others to belong to. And Mexico isn't free of problems, but there's a deeper level to feeling belonging.
I choose to see the good and experience that on a daily basis. That doesn't mean that I don't understand that there is serious bad problems with the cartels here. I mean, it's like a cancer that's spread through, you know, the entire country. It's not just Michoacan. Everybody says Michoacan's so dangerous, but it's everywhere in the country. You know that. They just don't want to admit that, but it's a cancer that is spread everywhere. I have been stopped by police for speeding or other infractions multiple times, and every time I have told them that yes, I deserve that ticket, and every time they have let me go, and I've never had to pay a mordita to get out of a situation, you know, and I never felt threatened in any of those situations either. I was respectful, and they were respectful to me, and that's the way it worked.
Mexico isn't a paradise or a postcard. but it's also not just a headline. Yes, it's a place where problems exist, and yet life still happens with warmth. What do you think is often misunderstood or misinterpreted about Mexico?
Everything. I don't think there's anything that ever is positive on the news about Mexico in the US. I think it's all negative. So it's just constantly reinforced that there are criminals and rapists and all kinds of ill people. It's not true at all. Quite truthfully, there is such an interconnection between the United States and Mexico with the families. You know that. There are millions and millions and millions of Mexican origin families, Latinos, living in the United States. So our countries are interconnected. There should not be a level of conflict. We should be working together as a unit.
What does togetherness and community taste like when it's not rushed? Maybe a little bit like tequila?
Well, obviously, in a social situation, that's the only time I ever drink is in a social situation. And I love my palomas.
Okay.
Sea salt.
Sea salt.
Yeah, sea salt. But I love the taste. And it's warms the body. It makes me feel good. And I don't drink in excess, but I enjoy having a paloma or two on occasion. I have never done a tequila shot, ever. To me, well, I don't like shots in general, but anyway, it means good times. It's just enjoying company of somebody, dinner or social gathering, and enjoying the vibe. But that's it. Okay. Don't drink to excess.
Okay. What does tequila, when well made and well shared, say about togetherness in Mexico?
Fiesta. That's the word that comes to mind. Fiesta. Good times. Just having fun. To me, a fiesta is when you're socializing with Mexican friends, not with gringo friends. So it's a different vibe altogether, believe me. I hate to say this, but in general, Mexican people know how to party. They know how to have a good time and enjoy life. Now, the problem is, as I've aged, I cannot stay up to 4 o'clock in the morning like some people I know. I have to go to bed. So, that's an age thing, I think.
A paloma is not a shortcut. It's a social ritual, shared time, shared pace. And belonging tastes like staying long enough to learn what people actually drink. So if you build your life prioritizing functioning over relating to others, there's something that is lost.
Humanity. Loss of humanity, you know. The kindness. I like to say that Mexico is like the U.S. was 50 to 60 years ago because there's still a lot of interpersonal reactions here in everyday life.
After living here for so many years, what about Mexico have you learned that can't be seen or can't be understood from the outside?
Everything.
Tell me more.
The kindness of society. I mean, I have neighbors that unsolicited, they're bringing me a bag of avocados from their huerta, you know? Or my neighbor next door, who I've had for over 12 years, he has a bakery. Once in a while he'll show up with a loaf of bread, you know? It's like, oh my God, how kind. It's just those little things, you know? Intangible acts of kindness. I mean, really, that's the biggest thing.
How does that make you feel?
Wonderful, happy, grateful.
And this is Wayne, someone who works hard to build a life in another country. Belonging isn't passive. For some people, it's built through work, contribution, and the refusal to shrink.
Not everybody can do what I've done, to come to a foreign country and start businesses and work in this country to a level of success. Just doesn't happen that often. And I'm kind of proud of that. There's still something inside of me that I gotta keep going. I gotta achieve something great.
You just gotta keep going.
Leave a legacy. I got that legacy I have to leave.
And he wants everyone to understand something about Mexico that is beyond the stereotypes.
I say this to my expat friends all the time, and if you knew them, you could ask them. We are so lucky to live here. I keep saying that over and over again. Every time I go out on a tour and see the absolute beauty and history and depth of this country, I just say, we are so lucky to live here. And if there's anybody out there that listens to this, that's the one thing. You need to come down and experience it for yourself, and you too will feel lucky for taking the leap to come and live in Mexico. It's a great adventure.
Belonging is built, not inherited, not bought with dollars, not rushed through Facebook expertise or weekend tourism. It's language, patience, humility, and showing up long enough to be changed. Sometimes 16 years at a time. One awkward Spanish mistake, one Halloween party, one Paloma, one neighbor with a loaf of bread. Thank you for watching 365 Days of Tequila. If this story resonated, be sure to subscribe to the channel and give the video a like. Then tell us in the comments, where are you trying to feel at home? And what work are you actually putting in to belong there? And if you know someone thinking about moving to Mexico, starting over abroad, or building community as an expat or immigrant in Mexico, be sure to pass this along. Because sometimes the most radical thing you can say about a country is simple. We're so lucky to live here.